The way we see a situation or something play out in our lives has huge consequences on how we actually interpret the objective reality that we've just experienced. So our perception really does become our literal reality. If we can change the way that we interpret a scenario, then that literally changes our experience of that reality. But it can get very difficult when we have all of these muddying factors coming in, like the expectations we have of ourselves, the expectations we have of others, or the expectations we have of others of ourselves in kind of a strange way. So when we have all of these different things coming together, it can create quite a different picture of reality in our subjective experience as compared to the objective reality of whatever has gone on. This is especially true if we have any kind of trauma or deep-seated experience that has made us put up a barrier to the world, or any other thing that we've found to be really negatively impacting. That can be very powerful in how we choose to frame the experience that we've had. Think about this. Have you ever had the situation where you're messaging with someone and then they just go inactive all of a sudden, and then they just kind of ghost you for a few hours? Have you ever had the scenario where you're talking with someone and you don't get quite the response you were expecting? Or have you ever had the experience where someone just takes ages to reply? It can be very easy to take each of these situations and skew them into a very particular light, and to start feeling all of these strange, uncomfortable feelings start bubbling up inside of us, when we don't actually realize that that just may be some underlying, deep-seated thing that we haven't actually had the time to really investigate more deeply, and have just been playing it out on a day-to-day basis. I found that usually when I have this experience of these negative emotions bubbling up as a result of text conversation on whatever platform you like, not quite going the way that I was expecting, usually it's come as a result of my expectations of what I thought was going to happen not being met. And as a result, I start to have these feelings of being uncomfortable. And then from that place, it is very, very easy to start crafting a storyline or crafting a narrative that focuses around some kind of protagonist-antagonistic situation where one person is doing something just to spite the other, or there is a lack of respect, or there is some kind of convoluted plot that we are configuring in our mind to make that make sense. But we are only making it make sense with the context of the trauma or whatever it is that is making us have these negative emotions towards the expectations that have been unmet of this person. What this does to us is it almost reduces the interactions we have with each other to kind of caricatures just going back and forth. So we convince ourselves of all of these harebrained schemes and plots and ideas that in reality are quite highly unlikely. And it's only because we've started to build this narrative around this situation and really make it into something that it's not. We give it a lot more power than it deserves, and we make the story the centerpiece of our fixations in that moment. As you can tell, this is not the most useful thing that we can do when we're interacting with another human being. Recently I heard of this concept in marriage counseling called positive sentiment override versus negative sentiment override. Now, what this basically is a form of storytelling about our partner, or in this case, about our spouse. So for example, positive sentiment override is fundamentally where our partner does something that we dislike or that we might deem as bad, but we just chalk it up to them having a bad day or them being tired or something that's kind of outside of their control but isn't a character trait of theirs. But then when they do something great, then we just say, yeah, well, they did that because they're a great person. They're the kind of person that does that. So we're framing them in a positive light. We're giving them the benefit of the doubt. Whereas negative sentiment override is fundamentally where our partner does something good, but then we say the same things about the positives that we did about the negatives in the previous case. So we say, oh, well, this just must be a special day, or there just must be something going on, or they must be cheating on me, or some really harebrained scheme. And then when they do something negative, they say, well, yeah, of course, that's just the kind of person that they are. And so then the picture that we've built up of them is that they are this negative person. They are all of the problems that we don't want. Whereas in the former case, they are a good person. They just happen to do like dumb things occasionally, which we all do, which is why it's a much better methodology for the interrelations between two human beings, two dynamic human beings that have a lot of things going on that is very difficult to try to integrate. So then we can see, am I being fair? Am I giving my partner the benefit of the doubt? Or in any scenario, am I giving my friend the benefit of the doubt? Am I giving this professor the benefit of the doubt? And am I giving myself the benefit of the doubt? When we do this with ourselves, it can be very difficult because we're the judge, jury, and executioner. So in that way, we can be very hard on ourselves without even realizing. Something that's helped me a lot, and that it seems to help friends of mine, is to assume best intention, regardless of what the situation is. Whether it's sending someone a message, whether it's communicating face to face, whatever it is. So as long as we can assume best intent from the people that we interact with and from the situations that we find ourselves in, then we're going to get the best results that we possibly can. Because what is the alternative? Let's say we assume worst intent. Let's say we send someone a message and they don't reply for however many hours, and then they only reply, 1 or 2 word answers, right? We could say, oh, well, it's just because they don't respect me, or because, worse, I'm not good enough, or that's what I deserve, or all of these things that generally will decrease the quality of our life. Whereas if we come from a framework of assuming best intent, and they do the exact same thing, we can come at it and say, oh, well, they must be busy, or XYZ, any amount of things we want to come up with. The way that we interpret something becomes the way that we experience it. And so if we choose to interpret it positively, or give them almost benefit of the doubt, use our rose-colored glasses for our own benefit, obviously this doesn't take into account, abusive relationships or situations where you're clearly being taken advantage of. You need to be, using your common sense here. But as a general rule, as a rule of thumb, if you're assuming best intent, then you're going to be having the best outcomes that you can possibly have in your interpretations of a scenario. And probably the most important part of this entire video is to realize that we are whole with or without the approval or validation of anyone else, and that we are worthy of love without the need to impress or to provide proof that we are in fact valuable. So thank you for watching. If you thought that was valuable, then I've got lots of plans for making more and more videos in the coming future. So if you want to stick around and follow along on this journey, then feel free to subscribe. Otherwise, I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.